Hi, this podcast is looking at the EDUQAS Paper 2 writing exam. I'm going to try and do a quick video looking at everything you need to do well in Paper 2. So the 6 writing tasks in the Paper 2 exam are the following: letter, report, article, review, leaflet, and speech. So we're going to go through all the structures of the different kinds and then also add a few more tips that will stand you in good stead. So I would say an example structure for all the questions, so whatever questions you get. So forget about a letter or addresses and things like that. Just basically how you're going to write your paragraphs is your first paragraph is going to be your intro. Your second, third, and fourth paragraphs are going to be your main point. So remember, we're not all shoving all our points in one big chunk. We're doing one paragraph, one point, and then we're going to end it with a conclusion. So things you need to do in every text. Use the exam question to help you write the intro. We'll talk about that. You're going to try and persuade the reader to agree with you. Try to write 4 or 5 sentences in your main paragraph so the intro can be smaller. Creating statistics is a really good thing to impress the examiner. So you could say 96% of students thinks the catering services are poor if you were writing a report. Try and use interesting sentence starters like firstly, secondly, however. Use the forest, check your there, and there apostrophes and capitals, and try not to have huge sentences. If you have ones that are 4 or 5 longs, you may need to put a comma or full stop in. So let's look at a letter structure. So we've got the addresses at the top, then we've got a date, and then we've got a little intro, a few main paragraphs, and then yours faithfully, and then the writer's name. So tips for the letters. So if we look at this question is last weekend you had to write a train complaint. So if you put in Dear Sir or Madam, you're ending with faithfully. If you're putting the name, it's yours sincerely. Try to persuade the reader to agree with you. Use sentence starters like firstly, secondly, however. Use the forest, check there and there. Make sure you have capital letters on address and date. So a common mistake people make, say if we have the address 22 Kings Avenue, people put a capital on the K but they don't on the A. So remember it's got to be the Kings and Avenue that has a capital letter. So let's look at a sample paragraph. So this was about a train complaint. Secondly, I was shocked by the state the train had been left in by previous passengers. 95% of the floor was covered by fast food, drink, and newspapers, while my seat had a stinky stain on it. Revolted and repulsed, I had no choice but to sit on it due to the train being so overcrowded. How often is the train meant to be cleaned? It is my expectation that the mess should be cleaned up by the train staff and not for the next passenger. So, why is it quite a good paragraph? Well, it's got 4 or 5 sentences in. It's got interesting sentence starters. We've got secondly, we've got revolted and repulsed. We've got the forest, so we've got a statistic. 95% of the floor was covered. We've got a rhetorical question. How often is the train meant to be cleaned up? And all the way through, the language is quite persuasive. So I wasn't saying I'm disappointed. I'm saying I'm shocked. Yeah, all the way through, I'm trying to persuade the person that how bad my journey was. So here's the speech structure. So in a speech, you're going to say hello, good morning. And then after that, you're just going to do an intro, 3 main points, and then say goodbye. So speeches, say hi. So say hello and what you're going to talk about in your introduction. Use direct address throughout for a speech. So say you and we. Trying to persuade the reader to agree with you. So you could also use rhetorical questions. Again, we're using interesting sentence starters. Use the voice and check if you're there, and there. Here's a sample paragraph. This question was about things that annoy us. I think we would all agree that we need to get rid of snoring. Is there anything worse than being woken up at 3 a.m. by a gigantic snort? In a recent survey, it said 45% of people make these nasal nightmares at least 3 nights a week. Seriously, the sound is annoying, cringing, and makes me want to scream at the person to shut up. It always puts me in a revolting, rancid mood for the whole day, and my family know not to mess with me afterwards. Let's act now and get rid of it forever. So why is it good? So again, we've got a rhetorical question, we've got a statistic, we've got interesting sentence start with seriously, we've got power of 3. So it says annoying, cringing, and makes you want to scream. So power of 3. But again, we've used direct address all the way through. So the first line, we've got we, we've got you, and then the last sentence, let's act now and get rid of it forever. So it's almost the person doing the speech is almost saying to the audience, we're all in it together, which makes the audience feel interested and involved. A review. So a review structure, normally it'll be a film review, it might be a hotel review. So here we've got a star rating, we've got a catchy title, then we're going to talk about the plot, then a couple of good things about the film, maybe talk about one boring bit, and then give a conclusion. So things you've got to remember for a film review: give a star rating, Create a catchy title and subheadings. So for example, if we were doing the Fast and the Furious, maybe we're trying to put the fantastic Fast and the Furious to use a bit of alliteration. Use ambitious adjectives in your review, so don't just put good, it was okay. Try to use words like fascinating, amazing, appalling. You're trying to persuade the reader to agree with you, either saying the film is great or the film is rubbish. Use interesting sentence starters, use the forest, check your there, and there, capitals and apostrophes. So here's an example. This is about a film called Arrival. Firstly, Amy Adams is outstanding in the main role. She is believable, sympathetic, and heroic as the doctor who has to save the world. Confused and baffled at the start of the film, she begins to work out what the aliens are saying and why they're here. In a recent survey, Amy Adams was voted the world's #1 actress by readers of Film Review magazine. She has to win the Oscar. So again, this is one of my good points about the film. So the other good points I'm going to write paragraphs on could be about the music or the humour. But this one is about the actress. Okay, again, I've used power of three, believable, sympathetic, heroic. I've used sentence starters, confused and baffled. And also I've made up the survey, I've made up a statistic. I've said she's been voted the world's best by Film Review magazine, which I've completely made up. And then a final sentence, just to exaggerate how much I liked it, she has to win the Oscar. Okay, an article. Here's an article structure. Catchy title, catchy intro, catchy subheadings. This one was about places to visit in Bournemouth, places to visit in the UK for a good day out. So I put a catchy title with a rhetorical question, and haven't just put beaches, air festival. I've made up subheadings, so gorgeous golden beaches. For the air festival, I put the sky's the limit. For the oceanarium, I haven't just put oceanarium, I've put dive into the oceanarium, try to make it catchy. So for an article, you're going to create a catchy title and subheadings. You're trying to persuade the reader to agree with you. In this case, you're trying to get the visitor to visit the place where you talked about. Use interesting sentence starters. Use the forest. Check your there, and there. Here's an example of an article. Gorgeous golden beaches. Welcome to 7 miles of award-winning beaches. Bournemouth would not be the world-class tourist resort that it is without its heavenly golden sand. Whether it's chilling on a deck chair, enjoying tasty food, or just admiring miles of breathtaking coastline, Bournemouth Beach is the ideal location, whatever the weather or time of year. Every section of Bournemouth Beach offers a different experience, so why not try out one of our many superb water sports or enjoy plenty of attractions at pier approach? There is a bit on the beach feed with your name on it. Okay, so again, statistics, 7 miles. Um, Interesting emotive language. I haven't just put the coastline, I put breathtaking coastline. Again, rhetorical question. Why don't you enjoy one of the attractions at pier approach? And then the last sentence, I've almost used direct address, haven't I? Talking directly to the reader. There is a bit of beach with your name on it, so it makes it feel like we're talking to the reader directly. A report. So a report is a bit different from the other ones. It's the most formal one. A report is basically you're giving advice to a company or someone on how something can improve. So instead of having a catchy title for a report, we've now got a boring formal title, so report on college improvements. Again, we're not having catchy subheadings, we're just having normal subheadings. The subheadings we're looking at in a report are going to be introduction, problem, solutions, and conclusion. So you've got your intro, then the problems would be what is wrong with the company, then the solutions are going to be how you're going to solve those problems, and then your conclusion is basically saying, well, if you take everything into account, the company will improve. Again, paragraphs split into different sections for each point. So for report, we'll give an example. You have to write a report about a leisure centre, what they could do to improve. You must keep it formal and businesslike. You're trying to persuade the reader to agree with you. Use sentence starters like firstly, secondly, however. Create statistics, really important for reports. So for example, 99% of your customers think you need more staff on the counter. Check your there, and try to revise these paragraph headings for your report. Introduction, problems, solutions, and conclusions. If you want to look at any more of these in detail, type BPC English into YouTube. There's a video on each of these writing tasks. Here's a sample paragraph. So problems, I'm going to talk about one of my problems. Firstly, one huge concern from the paying public was the swimming pool. 86% of swimmers stated that the water has too much chlorine and stings their eyes. The results also showed there was limited changing room space while the showers were always cold. Although the majority of customers were happy with the service provided by staff, 26% believe they needed more staff on duty at busy periods. So we're not going to use lots of DeForest, but we're going to use statistics because it's like a business report, so 86%, 26%. And also, I've kept it very formal with formal language. So I haven't just put worry, I've put concern, I've put paying public, I've put the majority of customers, service provided. All of these are formal terms. Okay, the last one is a leaflet. First of all, the leaflet is quite similar to an article, really. So you're going to write it the same way. Only difference really being is if it's a leaflet, you're maybe trying to sell something a bit more. So a leaflet structure, my one is going to be on Monkey World. It has a catchy heading, catchy subheadings. Again, one paragraph per subheading talking about what's so good about the place, and then you're going to do a catchy outro. So leaflet, write the same way as an article. It may be called a guide in the exam, so be careful. If it says a guide, we're talking about a leaflet. Create a catchy title and subheadings. Use interesting sentence starters. Try to persuade the reader to agree with you to go and visit Monkey World. Use the forest. Check your there, and there. Do not draw any pictures or fold your paper like an exam. You don't need to do that. Okay, and here's a sample paragraph. This one's about the monkeys, so I haven't just put monkeys as my subheading, I put monkeying about. As millions of visitors of Monkey World could attest, these animals are endlessly watchable. The chance to see baby orangutans playing, lolloping bachelor chimpanzees and acrobatic gibbons, again, para-free I've used there, feels like a privilege. There are 20 species in all, while signs on the enclosure introduce you to the members of each troop, and daily keeper talks reveal more about their characters. There's also 2 children's playgrounds. So I've given lots of information because I need to tell the reader the information about the park. But I've also used persuasive language. So I've used statistics, millions of visitors. I've used power of free. I've used words like privilege to show how great it is. And I've also made up stuff about the park to get people to go. So there's daily keeper talks. So that's all the stuff that you're going to leave for the exam. And now we're going to look at things you need to do to make sure you get top grades. First of all, you're going to proofread the following things. Firstly, your there, and there. So although you might think, oh, this is easy peasy, you really need to make sure you know it. Okay, so the first there, THERE, is a statement or location. For example, there are 5 people over there. THEIR means belonging to someone. Example, have you seen their house? And THEYR apostrophe RE is short for they are. So for example, they are coming to dinner. One trick I would do with this is if you say to yourself, does THEYRE fit in the sentence? That might help you. So for example, they are coming to dinner, that fits. But if you said, have you seen they are house? That doesn't fit, is it? So one little trick might be, say to yourself, does they are fit? If it fits, it's that one. If it doesn't fit, it's one of the other 2. Okay, you've also got to, okay, so we've talked about that. You've also got to proofread your capital letters. So remember, sentences on beginning of a sentence, proper names of people, places, titles of songbooks, etc. The letter I should always be an I when you're talking about yourself. Titles of people, so Mr., Mrs., days of the week, months of the year, and holidays. You're also going to proofread your apostrophes. Okay, so shortening a word. So for example, do not becomes don't, I am because I'm. This seems really obvious, and I'm sure you all know. However, with iPhones and autocorrect and stuff like that, some people forget to do it. So you must make sure you do it and proofread in the exam. And the other thing is possession, so something belonging to someone. So for example, the pen belongs to Chloe would equal Chloe's apostrophe pen. If I was saying the boy's bedroom and I meant one boy, the apostrophe goes before the S. If I'm talking about a group of boys, then it's the end of the S. So try to remember that. Okay, top 7 misspellings that I've come across teaching my students are achieve, firstly, writing, sincerely, appalling, overall, specific. Some of these words you might think, oh, blimey, how could they not spell that? Or other words you might think, well, actually, they are quite tough. So I would say these would be really good to revise for the exam. One trick to do would be to look at the word. So if you say one word, look at the word, cover it over with a piece of paper or your hand, write the spelling again and uncover the spelling to check you've got it right. So I would do that maybe once every day before the exam just to make sure you're getting the spellings right. So shall I say, for example, sincerely, you know you're probably going to spell sincerely if you get a letter. You're probably going to use firstly, you're probably going to use writing. So if you're getting any of those key ones wrong, make sure you revise. Okay, so also deforest, some of you might not know this, my students will. So you need to write down what deforest is, you need to revise and try and use these terms. Basically, apart from the report where you're just using statistics, you can probably use direct address, alliteration, facts, opinion, RQs, appointive language, statistics, and orthography. You can probably use it in every text you're going to get in the writing exam. Remember, we're trying to persuade the reader to agree with us, so using these will really set you apart from the rest. So for example here, see if you can pause the video, maybe pick out what they are. So for example, on the left, we've got blood, sweat and tears, power of free. While I nodded nearly napping, we've got alliteration, and the bottom one we've got emotive language. So we're not just saying children, we're saying poor innocent babes. It makes it more emotive, more emotional for the reader to read. Okay, so here's a typical question. Okay, so if you have time, try to come up with maybe one sentence that you could use for DeForest for this exam question. See if you can come up with a direct address and etc. for every single one. Okay. Also really important in the exam to use sentence starters. So it's really boring just to start with I, a, she, he all the time. So trying to use sentence starters like the following. Firstly, secondly, finally, however, although, on the other hand, surprisingly, annoyed and frustrated, comma. Always make sure you use a comma after them. Again, these make the sentences more interesting and they probably will up your grade on your spelling, punctuation, accuracy and grammar. Okay, one thing that students commonly find hard to do is actually just start in the exam. As soon as they get going with the writing task, they're fine. It's just the first paragraph they struggle to do. So one tip, I've got to give you a few tips. My first tip is use the exam question to help you. So what I mean by that is if we get an exam question like this, the National Lottery, if you look at my intro below, what I'm going to do is I'm almost copying out a few parts of the exam question to help me. So for example, the question was the National Lottery are giving money for school improvements. Okay. My first sentence is the National Lottery are giving one school in the area money for school improvements. Okay. And at the bottom, it says, write a letter for the National Lottery persuading that your school deserves to be chosen. My bottom part of my sentence is, my school deserves to be chosen. So use the exam question to help you. That is what is there for. That's the idea of an exam question to help the student. So doing that will really help you in your intro. Remember, the intro hasn't got to be 5 or 6 lines. You can, a 1 or 2 sentence introduction is absolutely fine. All you're doing is outline what you're going to talk about. So, for example, this question is about why should my money get school funding for school improvements? All I'm doing in my intro is saying my school deserves to be chosen. I'm not saying why. So then in my second, third, and fourth paragraph, I would give the reason. So I might say we have no computers, we have no sport hall, but I'm not doing that in my first paragraph. All I'm doing in my first paragraph is saying that why I'm writing. Okay, my second question, if you're confident with using colons, is use a colon. So basically we use a colon for introducing a list, or maybe if there's a statement we want to bring attention to. So my phrase that I use is let me get straight to the point, colon, my school deserves to be chosen. And even if you're not that great on colons, if you try to use that phrase, let me get straight to the point, colon, it's really important because it makes it really, you're writing really focused because you're literally saying what gets to the point, and it's also going to up your spelling, punctuation, and grammar grade. So say if you were talking about a hotel that you wanted a refund for because it was bad service, you could say, the service was really bad, let me get straight to the point, I want my refund now. Okay, so remember, final tips for this exam are try to persuade the reader to agree with you, 4 or 5, 6 sentences in your main paragraphs, the intro can be smaller, use the exam question to help you write the intro, create statistics to prove your point, use interesting sentence starters, use DeForest, try not to have huge sentences. If you have one that's 4 or 5 lines long, you need to put a full stop in, check your there, and there, apostrophes and capital letters. So that's it for the video. Hopefully that's been of use. Good luck in the exam.